400 years ago, the first of millions of African men, women, and children were captured, chained, imprisoned, and shipped from Africa to the American colonies to enter a life in bondage as slaves. Their forced labor helped build the American economy. The emancipation movement of the 1800s to free the slaves divided our country and sparked the Civil War. The war led to the passage of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which abolished slavery once and for all in the United States, but it would take more than 100 years for equality to become more than just a dream for so many of the descendants of these former slaves. Now, in what is being called a must-see multimedia meditation at the Billie Holiday Theater in Brooklyn, titled A Walk into Slavery, an emotional and evocative experience traces the entire journey, and it's being presented there. Here with details, the executive director of the Billie Holiday Theater, Dr. Indira Etwaru. Indira, it's nice to have you with us.
Nice to be here, Jack.
I want to start off with the Billie Holiday Theater before we get to this event, because I think it's one of those gems that a lot of people don't know about. How did it come into being?
It is a gem that a lot of people don't know about. It was founded in 1972 by the first president of Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation, Franklin A. Thomas. And Franklin A. Thomas went on to become the first African-American president at the Ford Foundation. So a great leader and visionary in his own right. He tapped Herbert Scott Gibson, who founded the Fort Greene Historic District, and Herbert felt that theater was something that could help revitalize a community. It's in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. It's during the 60s, during race riots and a tumultuous time in our country. And so it's a theater that has been alive and well and presenting incredible stories for the last 47 years.
When you talk about incredible stories, this one that you and I are talking about certainly fits within that category. Tell me the idea behind this and how it came about.
Sure. Well, one of my team members, the creative director, Hollis King, took a trip to Ghana. He came back and he began sharing photographs and sketches. He's a photographer and an artist, and he began talking about this transformative journey. Interestingly enough, he did not initially want to make that journey. And so
Why not? What was his resistance, you think?
He wasn't sure what he would find there. He wasn't sure if it was just sort of, did I need to go? You know, I'm living my life fully in North America. And interestingly enough, he's from Trinidad. He came to New York, Brooklyn, New York, became one of the most renowned creative directors working with a large record label, and is at, you know, sort of a little past the midway point of his life. And so really sort of reckoning with, do I need to go back in order to move forward?
How much do I need to know about where I came from?
How much do I need to know? And so the story sits in that place. And it sits in a place of not necessarily talking about the African citizens who made their way to North America and stepped onto ground that is America, but what about the 2.5 million who were lost in the transatlantic journey and were either tossed overboard?
That's a staggering number that people don't realize.
Staggering
the ones
number.
That died as
the
part
ones
of
that
the
died
passage.
and never made the journey and never actually arrived. We talk about this notion that for those who stayed in Africa, something was stolen from them. And for those who were taken, something stayed. And so it's about connecting that disconnect and finding new ways to ask some of the same old questions, but also kind of troubling the waters and asking new questions of ourselves to see if in fact we can arrive at sort of a fresh narrative as we, you know, think about this notion of 400 years.
I described it in the introduction as a multimedia meditation.
Yeah.
What do we mean by that?
We were building it. So you get a group of artists in a room. Hollis King, Carl Hancock Rux, this incredible poet and playwright, Marcel Davies Lashley, incredible composer and musician. And you begin to press at a story and you begin to sort of, I like to think of it as a piece of coal and you apply pressure, and then this diamond begins to reveal itself. We kept asking, well, it's not musical theater. There's music and there's theater, and it's not theater. And what is happening here? And there are these beautiful projections of Hollis's work, his sketches, his photography, historical projections, and it had this very meditative feeling. There's, in fact, a moment when the actor stands for 1 whole minute. And then we look at the idea that from the West Coast to Jamestown is 3 months by boat. And we multiplied that and said that's 7,776,000 minutes. And just for that actor to stand for 1 minute feels like forever.
And to think there were so many of those minutes in that passage.
So
That's
many
a
of those
great way to project that, a powerful way to project that.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I see that there's the utilization of a box on stage. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, Jack, because that box represents the limitations, the constraints, the sense of not being able to stretch one's wingspan, if you will, fully. The moment that first foot stepped onto American soil, shackled, there's been an existence by people of African descent in America that has felt contained, that has felt oppressive, that has felt like people are not really able to be. And so we play with this notion of the box, and the box is very present and then not present depending on where we are within the story.
Indira, thank you for spending some time with us. A reminder for you, for more information on A Walk Into Slavery, make sure you visit us at metrofocus.org.